Hundreds of people in the valley say they are hearing voices in their heads. And those voices are being transmitted by microwave or other methods.
Well, several viewers asked us to investigate what they call electronic harassment. KMIR 6's Angela Monroe joins us now with what she's discovered. Angela.
Electronic harassment, synthetic telepathy, voice-to-skull technology. Chances are you haven't heard of these terms, but after searching the internet, I found dozens of websites dedicated to the phenomenon and several Valley residents who say they're victims.
How much more can you invade me than to go into my brain?
It sounds like somebody else is reading the book, only it's thoughts.
We're not having a group hallucination. This is actually something that's happening.
These men all live in the area, didn't know each other before the voices started, and say someone is playing mind games with them.
Mostly it's a lot of derogatory comments about whatever you're thinking about.
Only time I ever had a whole sentence, he said, "This is not about you," which just frosted me. If it's not about me, what the hell am I going through all this for?
Kevin Bond says he used to have a normal life.
I was living in the San Diego area, I was clerking for a federal judge, and I noticed that I was being followed by a whole bunch of people.
According to the websites, what Bond is describing is called gang stalking. He moved to Palm Springs to escape.
I started hearing, as you'll hear, hearing voices and what they'll call voice to skull or microwave hearing.
Bob Stansfield says his experience was similar and started a decade ago.
They were active in following me around here, and I started hearing the voices a little bit after the vehicular stalking.
Randall Ringer says the voices started when he was undergoing chemotherapy.
The first thing that was said was, "Randall Ringer." And I sat up straight and I went to into the bathroom, and I looked in the mirror, looked myself in the eyes, and I said, did that really happen?
Bond says he's found more than 300 victims locally and is tracking others across the state through billboards. Bond says neurotransmitter chips that run off body electricity have been inserted into some people.
And they assign cell phone numbers to them. The cell phone numbers are then run through a computer, and a computer translates your thoughts. This crime has been available to the military for 60 years.
Take a look at these pictures here. Scroll down a little bit. There's a bigger picture further down. It's a diagram, and it starts talking about electromagnetic effects on the human body. And it talks about psychoelectric weapons. Yeah, we've got, openly, Barack Obama spent $200 million on his brain project with DARPA. Yeah, let's see if we can hack into people's brains. Let's see if we can take away memories or implant false memories. And let's see if we can do it wirelessly. That's their big push right now. They don't want to have to, take you in and jack into the back of your neck like the Matrix, or do an operation and stick a probe into your head. No, they want to be able to do it remotely, wirelessly, without your perception. And so when you look at this diagram, they've got a human body there. And here's some of the creepy things they've got pointing at it. One of them, forced memory blanking and induced erroneous actions. Another one, forced manipulation of airways, including externally controlled forced speech. They can make you say stuff that you don't want to say. Forced nudging of arm during delicate or messy work, causing injury or spills. Forced precision manipulation of hands, sometimes synced to the forced walking visions. They give you microwave hearing, so you can hear voices. Transparent eyelids. I don't know what that is. Transparent eyelids? Artificial tinnitus, ringing in your ears. All this stuff. They're bragging about how they can do this. They call it the psychoelectronic weapon effects. And they got a little footnote down there. It said, the first unclassified successful transmission of the human voice directly into the skull of a living person was performed by Dr. Joseph Sharp of the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research in 1974. Well, that's the first unclassified successful thing. Now, they've had classified stuff before that. And as I pointed out before, Michael Aquino, a creepy figure in and of himself. He kind of looks like Eddie Munster, even more so than Paul Ryan, far more so than Paul Ryan, actually. And this is a guy who openly went on the Oprah Winfrey Show talking about how he was a Satanist. He had the Temple of Set in California and things like that. But he was somebody who worked for the NSA. And he had no problem going on with all of his satanic cult stuff on the Oprah Winfrey Show. He was alleged to have committed child abuse, alleged pedophile at the Presidio in California, the military base there. He escaped prostitution. He escaped prosecution, and because he's connected with people. Again, he worked for the NSA, and he wrote a book in 1980 called Mind War. And in that book, he talked about how they could use extremely low frequency to control people, to control their minds. And you look at the stuff I just read to you. I mean, forced memory and forced movement of arms and forced speaking and all this kind of stuff. I mean, this is way beyond the MK Ultra program, Catcher in the Rye and LSD, folks. This is far more sophisticated. They've had decades to work on this stuff. And he wrote this book called Mind War in 1980, where he said, hey, we can use extremely low frequency on people, get them to do things. And then you remember, I brought this up when we had the Navy Yard shooter, because he was shooting people. He had been complaining about voices in his head, and he carved on the stock of his gun, "This is my ELF weapon, extra low frequency." And when you look at this document that they sent him about psychoelectronic weapon effects, I looked at this at the bottom, and I thought, oh, this is kind of interesting. They break stuff down to get into the auditory cortex, 15 hertz, to get into the visual cortex, 25 hertz. I mean, this is not megahertz, this is hertz. This is not MZ. This is hard to read on this thing. But one of them, 9 hertz. This is extremely low frequency. Anything that is, it has to be 20 hertz or above for you to even hear a bass note. Anything below that, if you hear it, it's just going to be clicks. So yeah, we have multiple data points here, but you're just a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist if you believe their own documents that they put out here.
November 20th, 2014. It's a day many will never forget in Tallahassee and beyond. What started out as a night of studying in a college library turned to tragedy because of one man, Myron May. May believed he was a victim of gang stalking. Well, tonight you'll hear from May in his own chilling words, pleading for anyone to understand him as we examine just what is gang stalking.
Kind of my last words. It's really unfortunate that I have to make this video. You see, I am a victim of covert harassment and electronic harassment and gang stalking. I'm what's called a targeted individual.
On November 20th, 2014, 31-year-old Myron May walks into Strozier Library on the campus of Florida State University and opens fire. 3 people are injured. May tries to leave campus, and a shootout with police in front of the library ends violently. The medical examiner confirming May was shot 24 times by police. For now, things seem to be back to normal on campus. Students have fallen back into their routines, but it was here not so long ago on a tragic night that has many wondering what could make a man snap and lose control. What causes a seemingly well-liked guy to plan a mass murder? Is it mental illness, or as many suggests, being a victim of gang stalking?
The goal of gang stalking is literally to drive a targeted individual crazy.
If you search gang stalking on the internet, you can find thousands of people all over the world describing similar circumstances. Those who feel they are victims of gang stalking truly believe people are out to get them.
They employ isolation tactics. They basically try to convince your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers that they should be keeping an eye on you.
In a 2-hour video diary that May released before the shooting, he explains how and when he started to believe he was a targeted individual.
A constant bout of noise that is never ending is designed to keep the targeted individual on edge.
In September of 2014, while May was living in Las Cruces, New Mexico, he filed a police report. In the incident report, May told police that someone put a camera in his apartment and that he was hearing voices coming through the walls. May began to believe family and friends were in on the conspiracy to make him crazy.
I am totally not crazy. I'm completely sane, but they've employed these tactics against me as well, to try to make me appear to be a crazy person.
Tyrone Dew, an advocate and victim of gang stalking, says it's hard to prove that gang stalking is not just in your mind.
It's virtually impossible to be able to tell that someone is being attacked, because we cannot see these weapons that are being used against you. We can only see the direct effects, and these effects, really seem like symptoms.
And what unfolded that Thursday morning in November is testimony of just how bad those suffering from mental illness can get. Through the entire process, Myron May believed he was being stalked.
There has been a shooting in the library. Stay where you are.
Father, forgive me for what I'm about to do. Forgive me for all of my sins, past sins, present sins, any future sins. I'm sorry that my faith was so weak. Amen.
Aaron Alexis, we know, had violent outbursts, run-ins with the police, and police now say he also heard voices.
Nicole, what happened?
21-year-old Nicole Natchman is not talking about the murders of her mother, Marion Dinas, or her stepfather, Robert Dinas, both gunned down last Thursday night. But this arrest affidavit speaking volumes tonight. According to deputies, the FSU student began hearing voices on campus telling her to kill her parents.
John, police say 26-year-old Richard Rojas said he was hearing voices and expected to die.
Officials say Esteban Santiago was undergoing treatment for mental health problems, complaining that he was hearing voices. They say a few months ago he walked into the FBI's office in Anchorage, complaining that the CIA was forcing him to join ISIS. Officials say local police were called and he went voluntarily to a mental health facility for treatment.
He's accused in a hostage scare that paralyzed downtown Pittsburgh. Now he says a crow told him to do it.
22-year-old Klein Thaxton believed he was hearing 3 voices inside his head the day he walked into this downtown office tower. One of them he calls the Crow.
The Crow, he said, talk to him.
Thaxton's lawyer revealed that new detail to us this morning after a preliminary hearing in the case.
Voices were telling him to cause some damage, cause some harm to someone. And he kept telling the voices, no, no, no.
Thaxton was arrested almost a month ago after police say he entered the office of Charles Breitzman on the 16th floor of 3 Gateway Center and held Breitzman hostage at knife point.
He was hearing 2 different voices. A lot of people don't know that. He was hearing 2 different voices because he wasn't on his medication. And he was battling the voices.
Driven by voices, that's the claim in an investigation by the Boston Globe about accused Boston Marathon bomber Tamerlan Tsarnaev.
Outside the Alvarez family home, the crime scene tape has disappeared, along with any sign of the 7-year-old boy or his father. Their neighbors remain in a state of disbelief.
Real shocking. I mean, I still can't get over it. I still can't get over it.
Now that Mayisa Alvarez has gone before a judge, her arrest report is public and sheds new light on her state of mind. The affidavit says Alvarez confessed that voices told her to kill her son.
And Lyerly was one of those people. In an interview with investigators, she first denied setting the fire and then said it was accidental. But when asked again, she said the house was, quote, filled with demons, and she began hearing voices telling her to carry out her mission. She admitted to lighting paper coffee strainers on fire, setting them on furniture, and then locking the door and walking away.
Big story there. Also a big story coming out of the South today. We're getting some new information on a deadly standoff in Louisiana. Police say a 20-year-old suspect took 3 bank employees hostage yesterday. He released one, but after more than 12 hours, he shot the other 2, killing one and leaving the other in critical condition. That's when police moved in and they killed him. Now we're learning more about the suspect. Police say he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia and believe something had been implanted in his head.
Newport police tell us they came here to the Marriott a month ago for a harassment call. According to the police report, the man we now know is the Navy Yard shooter said people were following him. He was hearing voices and they were putting vibrations in his body to keep him awake. Newport police say they responded to the Marriott Hotel early in the morning on August 7th. Aaron Alexis told police he was a naval contractor who traveled often. Alexis told the officer he had a verbal fight with someone at the airport in Virginia as he was getting on a flight to Rhode Island. And that person sent 3 people to follow him and keep him awake by talking to him and sending vibrations into his body. Alexis left a Middletown hotel, went to a Navy base hotel, but still heard the voices. He escaped to a 3rd hotel, the Marriott, Marriott, but the voices continued. Alexis told the officer the three individuals were speaking to him through the floor and using some sort of microwave machine to send vibrations through the ceiling, penetrating his body so he cannot fall asleep. A Newport police sergeant contacted Naval Station Police, which said it would follow up and determine if Alexis was a naval-based contractor. Today, Alexis's employer, The Experts, confirms the 34-year-old information technology employee worked for them for 6 months over the last year, and that his most recent background check and security clearance in June revealed no issues other than one minor traffic violation.
2 years ago, 16-year-old Corey Badsgard took a rifle to his high school and held 23 classmates hostage. Describe around that time how you were feeling.
In the morning, I didn't feel like going to school. I felt sick, didn't feel like really, like I could get up very well. And so I went back to bed, and next thing I remember, I'm in juvie in the detention center where I used to live.
This morning, authorities describing the mind of alleged shooter Nicholas Cruz as warped and possibly demented. Law enforcement sources tell ABC News the 19-year-old gunman told investigators he heard voices in his head directing him to conduct the attack.
Yeah, these demons are everywhere, man. Everybody in this mall is a demon. So there comes security right there, probably to intimidate me or something. So yeah, you see that woman pointing her finger on her chin, making a pyramid and pointing her finger, saying she's one with Satan and the Illuminati. And also that kid earlier, he was, pointing his finger a bunch of times too, so. I see that lady right there just made a pyramid right there. See, that kid just made a pyramid right there.
At just 12, these two girls nearly took another classmate's life. Last May, they lured her to a wooded area where police say they stabbed her 19 times. Video of their interrogation being made public for the first time.
Who stabbed her first?
I think Anissa stabbed her first, and then I continued, and then she was like, Morgan, make sure she doesn't escape. She told me that she got her in the lung right here 6 times, and then in the leg a few times.
The criminal complaint says the victim, who was also 12, was badly wounded. One knife strike coming so close to her heart, the criminal complaint says she was 1 millimeter away from certain death. Still, she survived. Not exactly how her attackers, Anissa Weir and Morgan Geyser, were hoping this would end. Listen.
So we told her we were gonna get help, but we really weren't. We were gonna run and let her pass away. So we ran.
The girls also told detectives how they each took part in the stabbing. This is their supply list. Notice the kitchen knife?
So then how did you get the knife from Anissa?
She sort of just shoved it into my hand, and there it was. And then I didn't know what I did. It sort of just happened. It didn't feel like anything. It was like air.
Incredibly, the victim managed to crawl out of the woods. A bike rider found her and got her to the hospital. The young suspects were arrested soon after, both charged as adults with attempted first-degree intentional homicide. When investigators asked why they did it, they both had the same answer: Slender Man. And this is where a violent and nearly murderous act becomes simply bizarre. Slender Man is a fictional internet monster, a ghoul who lurks in chat rooms and some of the internet's darkest corners. He's faceless, often portrayed in a dark suit with octopus-like tentacles. Slender Man is believed to haunt children and those who look to expose him. Police say the two attackers said they first encountered Slender Man on the website Creepypasta Wiki. They thought he was real, police say, and that if they didn't kill their classmate, then Slender Man would hurt them or their families.
When you guys were walking, you thought you saw Slender as you were walking?
This was after Morgan stabbed her. And he has tendrils that are very sharp.
Did you see him in your dreams, or where do you see him at?
Oh, I've seen him in my dreams.
Evidence presented in court shows what was found in Morgan Geyser's bedroom: dozens of disturbing drawings and numerous disfigured Barbie dolls, many with the Slender Man symbol on them. All proof, the defense team says, the girls truly believe Slender Man is real.
Truth be told, I wanted to be locked up so that I couldn't hurt her, but that time has passed, and now I'm in here because we were careless. I knew this would happen. I knew we'd get in trouble.
Nawalan ng malay ang mga estudyanteng ito ng St. Philomene Academy sa Alcala, Cagayan. Nagsisisigaw at nagpupumiglas. Sinaniban umano sila ng espiritu.
62 years na itong school namin. Ngayon lang nangyari ito. I'm really very scared.
Sinuotan ng mga rosaryo, pinahiran ng langis, at dinasalan ng mga guro ang mga sinasaniban. Dumating din ang mga magulang para umalalay sa kanilang anak. Pero nagwawala pa rin ang mga nasapian. Sinasakal na ng isa ang sarili. Lunes pa nang umano'y sapian ang 18 estudyante.
American men are failing in body, in mind, and in spirit. This is a crisis. Yet our leaders pretend it's not happening, and in fact, they tell us the opposite is true.
Did you leave that restaurant wanting to hurt anyone?
No. No.
Why did you do it?
I don't know. I don't know. If I knew, I would tell you.
This Skype interview with Austin Harif and Dr. Phil took place while Harif was inside his hospital room and before he was arrested or charged. He's accused of randomly murdering a Martin County couple in an unprovoked attack in their garage back in August and then chewing on the face of one of the victims. He's also accused of attacking an innocent bystander who tried to help. A toxicology report showed Harif was not on the synthetic drug Flakka.
Do you think you're mentally ill?
I guess so. I didn't know, though.
Harif would go on to say on the night of the attack he heard a voice and doesn't remember taking off his pants or exactly what happened.
Like myself, you know, I was like, why haven't you called the police or anything, you know? Why haven't you called them? She just kept saying, mumbling, devil and money, devil and money.
A murder victim's fiance telling KOCO5 about a gruesome murder. And right now, this woman, the main suspect, Juanita Gomez, the victim's own mother, accused of killing her with a crucifix.
It happened near 15th and Classen. KOCO's Jonathan Cooper live with the disturbing details. Jonathan.
Paul and Jess, according to these court documents, that woman thought her daughter was possessed by the devil. Now, we do want to warn you, some of the details in these documents are disturbing. According to court documents, Gomez, who lives at this home near Northwest 15th and Classen, admitted to attacking her 33-year-old daughter, Geneva, over the weekend because she was, quote, possessed by the devil. According to documents, Gomez says she forced a crucifix down her daughter's throat and saw her daughter die. Documents say Gomez admitted to placing the body in the shape of a cross.
As a mom, I just can't bear it. I mean, I can't understand how this happened.
Neighbors are in shock tonight.
It's sad. I couldn't even describe the feeling.
Geneva's fiance Frankie tells KOCO he discovered the body on Saturday afternoon.
She's just laying there, you know, with her arms out. Her face was like, can you recognize it?
Gomez is now in the Oklahoma County Jail on first-degree murder charges.
Say a man killed his mother because he thought she was possessed by the devil. Roderick Geronimo pleaded not guilty to beating his 80-year-old mother to death at her home in Poultney.
She is lucky to be alive this afternoon after her son attacked her inside their Columbus home. She told police that she woke up to the smell of bleach and found her son in the house with his girlfriend. She says her son was trying to choke her to death because she claims he said Satan told him to do it.
Satan told him, if I don't sacrifice you, I'll have to take my life tonight. That's what he said. And as he was choking me out, the girlfriend was behind him going, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop.
By the time police arrived, the woman's son and his girlfriend were gone. But inside, police found the body of another woman. Authorities have not identified that body yet.
Chandler police say Johnny Salazar used a cigarette lighter to burn his 5-year-old son's hands and wrists for touching his Bible. Investigators claim Johnny thought his son may be possessed.
He was seeing demons. The demons were trying to get him and that we were trying to poison him.
A woman tears through a church parking lot and blames demons for her reckless ride.
And like I felt like I was, like, I want to say possessed. Like I didn't have control. Like I didn't remember the whole ride.
8-year-old Edson Brito and 5-year-old Layson Brito found stabbed to death Monday in this Prospect Street home.
With so much grief, so much pain.
Their father remarking on the moments he'll miss.
And I'm no longer going to be able to stay on this step right here. It's okay. Come on. You got this. I'm never going to be able to wait for my son to get out of his school bus.
The family also wrestling with feelings about the boy's mother, Latarsha Sanders, now held without bail for their murders. Police say she told them it was part of a ritual.
4 daughters and then living with their bodies for months inside their Southeast Washington home. D.C. Bureau Chief Sam Ford watched part of Benita Jack's taped interrogation, and he's checking in now with the story. Sam, now she told police that she thought her girls were possessed by demons.
Spectators watched videotape of detectives interrogating 35-year-old Benita Jacks hours after authorities discovered the children's mummified bodies. Jacks told lawmen her children were all demon-possessed, especially 17-year-old Brittany, whom she called Jezebel, saying the girl tried to choke her and push her down the stairs. Brittany's body was found in a sealed room with a knife and blood on the floor. Spectators described the tape as disturbing.
No one came to the children's rescue.
She got everything in place on what she want to say and what she want to do.
So you don't think she's crazy?
No, I don't.
MPD Detective Daryl Richmond was one of the interrogators on the tape. Jacks told him and his partner that day that her younger daughters, Tatiana, age 11, Nakaya, 6, Asia, 5, were also demon-possessed. They were found laid side by side in a room. She said they died from lack of food. Detectives expressed exasperation. Detective, you've been in that house with 4 dead bodies for months. I can't understand how you can stay in there all that time. Jacks, I'm not saying it was easy. None of this has been easy.
Our top story, and one that's tough to even wrap your head around here. A father admits to killing his own teenage son. The weapon, an axe. Dad's excuse, he tells police his boy was a demon.
When they did finally find the boy, Cheryl claimed self-defense. He apparently thought his son was going to eat him. It is horrible, it is bizarre, and yet his neighbors say they've known something was off. At night, the police tape now gone.
Just shocked. It's a quiet little neighborhood.
Most would never give Gary Sherrill's house a second glance, and yet some neighbors did.
He had been screaming at a tree the other day.
He came out of the bushes and he shouted at me, "Excuse me."
Ma'am.
Several say they'd had strange encounters with the 51-year-old in just the last week. Stories of him rambling about numbers, holding an empty whiskey bottle.
People don't creep me out, and that guy creeped me out.
Said that he was an ex-Boy Scout leader and he would never hurt any child.
Police kept the questions going until they say Cheryl let them in. That's when they spotted the boy, already dead, sliced with an axe. Detectives say the father confessed, saying he feared his son. He believed the boy was a demon. Neighbors can only guess how troubled Cheryl really was.
He was either on drugs or had flipped out.
Neighbors also tell us Cheryl's windows were all blacked out with tinfoil. When they did see his son, they say the boy was never playing, just quiet. One woman says she actually called CPS once, but CPS told her if she didn't witness a crime, there was nothing they could do. Making this story even more heartbreaking, it comes just a week after this Casa Grande case. A mom, 35-year-old Connie Villa, confessing to suffocating her 13-year-old on Christmas Day and trying unsuccessfully to poison her 3 other children, all so that her ex-husband wouldn't get custody. Steve?
On top of that, the tragic scene unfolding tonight in Tolleson, what is being called a murder-suicide near 93rd Avenue and West Jefferson. The entire neighborhood shaken up, gathering at the home in tears and disbelief. Some of them heard the screams. Police say 45-year-old Alejandro Gallardo shot and killed his 6- and 8-year-old daughters and then turned the gun on himself.
Baby Bella Bond's mother, Rochelle Bond. She's prepared to testify against her ex-boyfriend, Michael McCarthy, saying he punched the 2-year-old Bella in the stomach and later dumped her body in the South Boston Harbor.
And said to her, if you tell anyone what happened, I will kill you. And he told her then, when she asked him, what did you do? He said, she just died. It was her time. She was a demon.
McCarthy's defense attorney says the child's mother made this story up to cover for herself, recalling a chilling conversation in which she allegedly told a friend
that now the demons were trying to get into Bella.
Tonight, breaking news, an unbelievable twist as the pregnant mom accused of trying to kill her 3 kids and herself by driving her minivan right into the ocean is behind bars tonight on a whopping $1.2 million bond. And tonight we discover this woman has killed before, and with a vehicle. That's right, 7 years ago, 32-year-old Ebony Wilkerson drove her car into another car, sending it spinning into a concrete barrier and badly injuring a woman who later died from her wounds. But back then, Ebony wasn't even arrested. She only got community service. And take a look at her now. There doesn't seem to be a trace of remorse or agony in this woman's face, even though she allegedly tried to kill her 3 precious children, ages 3, 9, and 10, by driving them into the ocean, even though they screamed and yelled and hollered and begged for their lives. Just take a look at this woman. She looks, I don't know, like she's at an art gallery looking at paintings. Either that or completely catatonic. But one thing I can tell you, there's not a tear in sight, even when the judge reads her the charges.
You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God. Ebony Wilkerson, you charged with 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder, for which you have no bond. You're also charged with 3 counts of child abuse causing great bodily harm.
Ebony's sister said right before the incident, Ebony was ranting about demons in her house and talking to Jesus. Is she completely crazy or just completely callous? We're going to go to a reporter on site who has some new information. But first, I want to analyze Wendy Walsh. Analyze this woman's expression from a psychoanalytical standpoint.
You know, Jane, what you would call not a tear shed, I would call lack of affect. And what we mean by that is somebody whose emotions are not connecting sort of to their physical expression. This is definitely, or could be, a sign of mental illness. This to me looks like a terrified woman who's not all together. Now, whether they've medicated her, I'm not sure, but her stilted walk, the eyes dashing back and forth. Look very closely. This is a woman who's mentally not quite present.
Judy Ho, your take as a forensic and clinical psychologist.
Well, Jane, to follow up a little bit on what Wendy said, yes, her affect is completely disconnected, and maybe this is exactly how she was able to complete that action of driving her car into the ocean with her kids screaming and asking for help. And the problem is there were so many opportunities in this case where we missed her. We could have taken her in. This would have never happened because her sister had called on the Monday before all this happened, took her to a mental hospital. They released her on Tuesday. She signed herself out, actually, because they didn't find a reason to keep her. As you mentioned earlier in the segment, the police evaluated her for about half an hour, said they didn't find any signs, and let her go again. But the problem is, I don't think that we are all very educated, all of us who are in this field or even just outside of it, like the police force coming into contact with these people, about what signs we really should look for when somebody's that disturbed.
When you're mentally ill, you don't wear a sign tattooed on your forehead that says, I am crazy. You got to figure it out. So in front of this, her sister, she's talking to Jesus and saying there's demons in the house, but then when the police arrive, she acts very loose.
3 months ago, the bodies were discovered in separate rooms in their Deerfield Drive home. Investigators initially believed they were victims of a ritualistic killing linked to witchcraft.
The fact that Mr. Hartung, was engaged in that, and the reason why I say that is there were some statements that he had made, and there was some evidence found at his home that clearly indicated that tie-in.
News 5 has learned Hartung had a book on witchcraft in his house, and in one of those initial interviews with authorities, he admitted to practicing the Wiccan religion. Other possible motives include a connection with RT's employer, the Department of Homeland Security.
Back in January, the removal of a Christian memorial by the city of Belle Plaine sparking outrage. The city citing complaints it violated constitutional obligations to separate church and state. Then in February came a big change. The Belle Plaine City Council voting to establish a so-called free speech zone where any religion or group can take part. But promises of inclusion were quickly put to the test. The Satanic Temple in Salem, Massachusetts, announcing a plan to install a monument of their own. The black cube with a helmet on top intended to honor veterans who may not be Christian.
Now looking at the star, and this again is another worrying thing for many, because I don't know whether you're one who would approve witchcraft as a listener, as somebody who's watching. But then again, according to the headline, how politicians are enriching witch doctors.
Apparently, politicians are now riding crocodile, wearing pythons, stripping naked, and having symbols cut into their tongues. That is a story that continues on page 4 and 5 of the paper. I mean, is it that serious?
Well, according to them, it looks like it's that serious and a lot is at stake. But interesting thing here is that our politicians are riding crocodiles.
And
but remember, we had
marrying.
another one who was marrying a crocodile, and it was a mayor. So I don't know, maybe riding a crocodile or... But how do you even ride a crocodile? Isn't that dangerous? Would that beast turn on
So
you?
it's an interesting...
Ya. Sandra. Sandra. ¿De ahora otra cosa? ¿De ahora llevar? ¿Ya no? ¿Ya no lo sigo ahora? Alejandra, ¿dónde está tu hermana? Alejandra, óyeme. ¿Cuánto tumbas a 10? ¿Cómo? Lo que le pusimos le dicen ¿cuánto tumbas a 10? No mames.
but for a demonic game which has been making the rounds like wildfire in schools across the country. The game is called Charlie Charlie. It's played with two pencils placed across each other on a piece of paper on which yes and no words are written. The spirit of Charlie is then called up and asked questions, and Charlie responds by moving the pencils.
You guys remember when Ouija boards were the big thing?
Charlie, Charlie, are you here?
Y'all so stupid. It's not real.
Real, bro?
How's it real?
Charlie, Charlie, come and play with me.
Charlie, Charlie, go in
Det rör sig lite, pyttelite där.
Charlie, Charlie, are you here?
Turn your lights off, maybe? I don't know.
Charlie, Charlie, do you want to play?
Quiet.
Charlie, are you here? Charlie, Charlie.
Charlie, Charlie, are you there? 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 Charlie, Charlie, ya va, ¿cómo está? Charlie, Charlie, podemos jugar contigo.
Oye, Charlie, Charlie.
Podemos jugar contigo.
Charlie,
Charlie, ¿de qué color son los pasteles de jugar? Charlie, Charlie, ¿es verdad que eres gay?
Tras la conmoción vivida en el centro de salud, 22 schoolgirls aged between 12 and 15 suffered mass demonic possession after playing a game of Charlie Charlie. Dice impotente porque ya son 4 los ataques que su hija ha presentado después de ese. The traumatic incident happened in the Choco region of Colombia. The children were screaming, writhing and hallucinating, and some were even foaming at the mouth. One victim claimed she could see a man dressed in black while possessed.
We are following a developing story out of Sauk Rapids where police say a second-grade student brought a kitchen knife to school and stabbed 3 other students. It happened at Pleasant View Elementary School just after 7 this morning. Officials say the boy who carried out the attack is just 8 years old. The victims are 8, 9, and 13 years old. 2 of the victims were taken to an area hospital. They have since been released. Officials say all of the injuries are minor. The suspect is now in custody, and police believe the attack was random.
So speaking of millennials all morning long, are they losing their faith? According to a Pew study from 2014, 34% of young people identify now as atheist, agnostic, or no religion at all. That's up about 10% from 2007. Just gives you a sense of the trend.
Our next guest is a pastor who is warning actively that millennials are on the verge of losing all knowledge of God and faith. Joining us now with more on what his organization is doing to combat this trend is Director of RC College Prep and Crosspoint Community Church, Pastor Mike Shepard. Pastor, thanks for joining us this morning. So, I mean, that's a number that would surprise a lot of people. And what is the reason this trend is happening amongst younger people?
Yeah, it's not news anymore. It's old news that seemingly no young adult possesses a biblical understanding of who God is. Somewhere around 6% of adults have what we call a biblical worldview, which is interesting because 90% of Americans still believe that God exists. So the question, why don't they do that? I think it's 2-part. One, they have not been taught faithfully by the older generations, and neither have the older generations lived faithfully. So younger Christians don't know what Christianity is, much less why it's true, and they've not seen from an older generation an authentic lifestyle. I mean, what's the good that is coming from Christianity? And then the cultural attack that exists reinforces that, saying Christianity is irrational and it's immoral, and young adults can't see otherwise because they don't know that God exists, why they should believe that, and they've not seen a pure form of Christianity lived out amongst their parents and grandparents and the broader adult Christian community.